This was October, 3 years ago. I was 29, solo hiking in the George Washington National Forest in Western Virginia. I've been doing backcountry trips since I was a teenager. I've camped alone in weather that would keep most people home. I'm not someone who panics. I want you to understand that before I go any further. I'd parked at a trailhead off Route 33, a spur trail that connects to a fire road, loops around a ridgeline, and drops back down. About 11 miles total. I'd done similar routes a dozen times. Simple. Nothing special about it. That was supposed to be the whole trip. When the path disappeared, I didn't immediately panic. I figured I'd drifted off trail without noticing. It happens especially in heavy leaf cover. October in the Appalachians, the forest floor is almost completely buried in dry leaves. The trail markers can disappear fast. I pulled out my phone. No signal, which I expected. But I downloaded the offline topo before I left, so I could still see my GPS position. According to the map, I was standing directly on the trail. I looked around me. There was nothing. Just trees, oaks and red maples. Old growth, trunks 3 feet wide, stretching up into a gray sky. No blazes on the bark. No worn path in the leaves. No footprints, not even my own, coming from the direction I just walked. That stopped me cold. I turned around. The direction I'd come from. There was nothing there. No sign anyone had ever walked through. The leaves were untouched, like I'd materialized out of thin air in the middle of these woods. I told myself I was disoriented. I told myself I was looking the wrong direction. I told myself a lot of things. Then I heard something move. Off to my left, maybe 60, 70 feet into the trees. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Not the random crackle of a deer. Deer move quick and then freeze. This was something moving at a pace that felt intentional. Step, pause, step, like it was choosing where to put its weight. I didn't move. I barely breathed. And then it stopped. Whatever was just stopped. And the forest went even quieter than before, if that was possible. That deep, pressurized silence that makes your ears ring. I stood there for what felt like 5 minutes, maybe longer. Nothing. I decided to move toward higher ground. If I could get to the ridgeline, I could see the lay of the land, reorient, find a way back to the fire road. Simple logic. Keep moving, keep calm, get high. The problem was, every time I tried to move in what I was sure was the right direction, the terrain seemed to fight me. Not dramatically, not like I was being pushed back. More like the ground just kept curving wrong. Slopes that should have been going up or going down. Draws I'd cross would reappear 20 minutes later on my other side. I checked the GPS constantly. The blue dot kept telling me I was moving. I could see it shifting across the map, but the landscape wasn't matching. At one point I stopped and looked at a tree I just passed. There was a scratch in the bark, low down about knee height, for parallel lines, deep enough to show white wood underneath. I stared at it for a long time. Then I looked 10 feet to my left and saw another one. Same height, same depth, same 4 lines. Then another, and another. They were everywhere. Every 3rd or 4th tree, going a circle around me. Like something had been marking them. Marking me, maybe. Marking the space I was standing in. That's when I started running. I know you're not supposed to. I know every survival guide says don't run. You'll exhaust yourself. You'll fall. You'll get more lost. I know all of that. But when something has drawn a circle around you in the middle of the forest where you cannot find your own footprints, you run. I ran for maybe 10 minutes, crashing through brush, vaulting over deadfall, not looking at the GPS anymore, just moving. And then I broke through a tree line onto the fire road. I was so relieved, I actually sat down in the gravel and laughed. Then I looked at the time. It was 4:47 in the afternoon. I'd started hiking at 8:30 in the morning. I'd been in the woods for 8 hours. My whole hike, the loop I'd planned, should have taken 4. I drove home. I didn't camp that night. A few weeks later, I went back to that trailhead, not hiking, just looking. I wanted to see the trail on a clear day, prove to myself it was just a bad navigation day. I found the trailhead. I walked maybe a quarter mile in, and then I found the scratched trees. Standing there, exactly as I remembered, in a rough circle, knee-height scratches on the bark. Except the bark had grown back. Not fully, not years of growth, but enough. The edges of the cuts had calloused over the way trees do when they've been healing for a long time. Not weeks. Those scratches were not made in October. They'd been there for years. Whoever, whatever, put me in that circle didn't do it that day. They'd done it long before I arrived. My cousin called me from a ranger station at 2 in the morning, and the first thing she said was, "There's someone on the trail. They've been following me for 6 hours, and I don't think they're human." She said completely flat. No hysteria. Just that. Stated like a fact she'd come to accept. By the time she said it, she'd been alone in the Ouachita National Forest for 3 days. My cousin Sarah is a wildlife biologist. She spent about 3 months out of every year doing field work, half of that in remote areas. She's not sheltered. She knows how to read animal sign, how to move in the backcountry, how to stay safe. If anything, she's the most competent person I know when it comes to being alone in the wilderness. She was doing a solo survey trip in Arkansas, owl population data, nothing dramatic. She planned to be in the field for 5 days, checking camera traps she'd placed the previous spring, covering about 60 miles of trail. She called me from the ranger station on day 4, having cut the trip short. She said the first sign was audio. Day 2 of the trip, around mid-afternoon, she started hearing something moving parallel to her through the woods. Parallel, not behind her, not in front, alongside her, matching her pace exactly. She told me she's heard that before with large mammals. Black bears will sometimes track a human for a while out of curiosity, moving parallel, watching. So she wasn't immediately alarmed. She made noise, talked out loud, the way you do. The sound didn't stop, but it also didn't approach. That night, she set up camp at a designated site on Trail 9, and everything was quiet. She wrote it off. Day 3, it was there again. Same thing. Parallel movement through the underbrush, maybe 30 or 40 feet into the trees. But now she noticed something about the movement that was different from day 2. It was only on her left side. Every time she looked to her right, nothing. Every time she looked to her left, movement. Like whatever it was knew which side she was paying attention to. She stopped mid-trail and stood still. The movement stopped too. Then she deliberately looked hard to her left, really committed to watching that side. And after a few seconds, she heard movement. To her right. Moving fast, surging forward, like it was using her attention as a gap to advance. It was testing her field of vision. That should have been the moment she turned back. She knows that now, but she was 3 hours from her final camera trap, and this was 2 years of data. She pushed forward. She started building a picture of it from sound alone. 2 legs. She was certain of that. The gait was bipedal. Too heavy for a person, she thought, but the strike pattern was right. And occasionally, when she stopped fast, she'd catch it a half step behind, like it couldn't stop quite as quickly as she could. Around 2 in the afternoon, she got to the camera trap site. She pulled the card, tucked it away, and while she was crouched at the base of the tree where the camera was mounted, she looked up. Across the small clearing, at the tree line, something was standing and watching her. She couldn't describe it clearly. The light was wrong, late afternoon, the sun hitting from behind it, heavy shadow. She said it was tall, very tall. She said it was standing completely still. She said she had the distinct, overwhelming impression that it had been standing there for a long time, that it had been there before she arrived and knew exactly where she was going to be. She didn't run. She told me she consciously decided not to run because she thought running might trigger a chase response. She picked up her pack slowly. She kept it in her peripheral vision and started moving back the way she came. For the first 100 yards, it didn't move. Just watched. Then she heard it start to follow. Not parallel anymore. Directly behind. She hiked 9 miles to the ranger station without stopping once. She said that for the last 3 miles, as it got dark, she couldn't hear it anymore. And that was worse. When she could hear it, at least she knew where it was. When it went silent, she didn't know anything. She filed a report with the ranger station. They took it seriously enough that they sent 2 rangers back down Trail 9 the following morning. They found her camera trap, right where she described. They found her boot prints going in and coming out. They found one other set of tracks. The Rangers described them in their report. I got a copy through a FOIA request 6 months later. As large bipedal impressions, consistent with a very large human, appearing to originate from the center of the clearing and tracking parallel to the subject's outbound route. Originating from the center of the clearing, not from the tree line, not from any direction. Whatever left those tracks didn't walk into that clearing. It was just there, like it had always been there, standing in the exact spot where Sarah had looked up and found it watching her. The Rangers filed it under inconclusive and closed the report. Sarah hasn't done a solo field survey since. We found the camp on the second day. 12 tents, fully set up, gear laid out, food still in the bear boxes, coffee cups sitting on a flat rock by the fire ring, like whoever was there had just stepped away for 5 minutes. No one ever came back to it, and after what happened that second night, we didn't go looking for them. There were 4 of us. Me, my college roommate Derek, his older brother Marcus, and Marcus's girlfriend at the time, a woman named Priya, who was the most experienced outdoors person in our group. This was in the Boundary Waters canoe area in northern Minnesota. Late August, about 8 years ago, we were doing a 10-day trip, canoe and portage, working our way through a chain of lakes toward a remote campsite Marcus had found on a map the previous winter. Nobody knew exactly where we were. That was the point. We found the abandoned camp on a peninsula jutting into the second lake. We almost paddled past it. The tents were deep in the tree line, almost invisible from the water. Priya spotted one through a gap in the pines. We pulled up and went in. Everything was meticulous. These weren't beginners. The camp was organized, properly constructed, leave no trace principles followed to a degree that told you these people knew what they were doing. High-quality gear, expensive packs. The tent are all North Face or Marmot. Good stuff. 12 tents for what we counted as at least 14 sleeping pads visible through the mesh doors. No people. We called out. Nothing. We walked the perimeter of the site. Nothing. Derek found a trip itinerary pinned to a birch tree near the fire ring. The kind people leave so others know their route in case of emergency. The group had been out there for 11 days. They were scheduled to exit the following morning. Priya said maybe they'd started breaking camp early and gone to pack out their canoes. We went back to the water. No canoes. No boats of any kind. No sign anyone had put in or taken out on this stretch of shore. We decided to camp on the far side of the peninsula, away from the abandoned site. Marcus wanted a radio out. He had a satellite communicator, but the canopy was too thick to get a signal lock. We agreed he'd try again in the morning from the lake. I had trouble sleeping. I kept thinking about the coffee cups, the way they were sitting there so casually. You don't set your cup down like that and then just vanish. There's no version of that story that ends well. Around 2 in the morning, I heard something. Not from the woods. From the lake. Voices. I sat up and listened. At first, I thought it might be sound carrying from somewhere distant. The Boundary Waters can be strange acoustically at night. You can hear things from a long way off. But these were close. Maybe 100 yards offshore. And they were getting closer. I unzipped the tent. The lake was flat. Full moon, good visibility. I could see clearly for maybe 300 yards. There was nothing on the water, but the voices were still there, getting louder, just below the threshold where I could make out words. Not panicked, almost conversational. Multiple people talking over each other. Then they stopped, and from somewhere in the abandoned camp on the other side of the peninsula, something started moving through the brush. Fast, not panicked movement, purposeful, like something coming back. I woke the others. We sat in complete silence for 40 minutes. The movement in the camp stopped. The voices didn't come back. When we were sure it was quiet, Marcus made me walk with him across the peninsula to check. The camp looked exactly the same. Undisturbed. 12 tents. Gear laid out. Coffee cups. Except one thing was different. The trip itinerary that had been pinned to the birch tree was gone. The pin was still there. The paper was gone. We left at first light. Paddled hard to get clear of the canopy so Marcus could get a signal. He reached the ranger station and reported the abandoned camp and our location. The ranger he spoke to went quiet for a moment when Marcus gave the coordinates. Then he said, That's the second report we've had from that location this summer. Marcus asked what the first report was. The rangers said a group had called in a large abandoned campsite from those coordinates 6 weeks earlier. Said it looked like people had left in a hurry. When the rangers went to investigate, there was nothing there. No camp, no gear, no sign anyone had been there at all. 6 weeks before we arrived, someone else had found the same camp, and by the time the rangers got there, it had vanished. We didn't wait for the rangers to come to us. We paddled out that day 11 miles and didn't stop. I've looked for that peninsula on maps a dozen times since. I know the lake we were on. I know roughly where it should be. I can never find it. Not on any map. Not on satellite imagery. Not anywhere. Like it isn't there. Like maybe it never was.